My name is Mary Mkandawire, and in my group 2, we had the following answers. On the first question of what does addressing loss and damage mean to you and your community? Addressing loss and damage to us is more like a step forward climate justice. It's not climate justice, but it is a step towards it, because now we're at least talking about the most vulnerable communities and something that affects them more than what we see, what us people who are able to adapt can see. Because people living with disabilities are still being affected by the floods. The young people who do not know how to swim are still being affected by these floods and other things. There are the fires, crazy fires. We have the droughts, we have the hurricanes, the tornadoes. So it's just now up to us to speak for them the right way. Now, what action should COP parties take to support addressing loss and damage? The first thing we think parties at COP should do is provide adaptation measures, because some of these disasters occur naturally and it's only up to us to adapt to them, but we need to learn how to adapt. That's by incorporating the indigenous knowledge that these communities, especially in Malawi, some of them have been living for the past decades, and they know what happens when these disasters occur. So now we have to get those ideas and at least provide a more scientific approach to their local knowledge, and maybe meet halfway and come up with a more practical solution that can be able to be used by them as well. Another thing is, a lot of people do not know about loss and damage, so we want the COP parties to take an initiative in actually making people aware, so that loss and damage should be a separate entity. We have an entity for mitigation, we have adaptation, so now we want loss and damage, because that is something that keeps on affecting us daily. And also, as it is a separate entity, we want a separate fund for loss and damage. We want a separate mechanism where these funds will be processed. We want a different strategic approach to how to access these funds, but it doesn't need to be attached to adaptation or mitigation, because when mitigation fails, loss and damage will still be there. When adaptation fails, loss and damage will still be there. So it needs to be separate. Another thing is, but we need to build more green infrastructure in Malawi, in LDCs, because honestly, when these disasters occur, the damages that are caused are so severe. We lose infrastructure, we lose our homes, we lose things that we hold so dear. So we want more green infrastructure that can withstand this climate impacts. Green schools, so that we can still go to school when the disasters hit. We don't have to wait for our schools to be rebuilt and for us to start learning after another year or so. So we want more stronger infrastructure, more stronger bridges and buildings and homes as well. Another action the COP parties need to take is to bring in safeguarding policies in the actions under loss and damage, because under loss and damage we notice that usually women get harassed when these things happen. Either it's because they're searching for food, so men usually take advantage of them, or maybe children are abused because they are vulnerable in such situations. So we want safeguarding policies that when these agreements are made, at least there is something to protect the vulnerable young women, the vulnerable children, and the people living with disabilities as well. And also, another thing that COP parties need to do is to mobilize faster. When I mean faster, not faster early warning signs, early warning systems. And when I say faster, I don't mean the disaster is coming next week, so they have to produce it this week. That's not enough time for someone to evacuate from their home, but at least 2 months before or a month before, at least invest in technology so that these early warning systems come out faster and they're available to all locations. No matter what your status is, they're available in your home, and you can learn about what they're saying, because they come out but not a lot of people understand. So we need something that can be produced in layman's language in a local community context, not only something that only a scientist can understand. I've already mentioned about having a separate fund for loss and damage. So in terms of agriculture, we were looking at it from a point of view that the damage has already been caused. So what we are advising Malawians to do is at least invest in fast-growing foods, so that when these damages occur, we can at least feed the people that are leaving after the disaster has struck. So we have crops which are available to each and everyone, and there's no starvation, there's no hunger. Now on question 3, where are these opportunities in our country, Malawi? As of now, we have the Department of Disaster Risk Management, DODMA. We also have community groups, cooperatives. We have all these structures that are already there. So what parties or what people who want to help us can do is to actually feed in these structures that are already there, invest in them, build them to be more aware, and so that they can come up with their own solutions as well, but also so that they can take care of funds that are brought in, and also so that they can actually be more result driven rather than whatever desires they may have. So we have all these opportunities in Malawi. Now on question 4, on Malawi and Scotland, I believe in our group we believe that Scotland should come here, and in a way that it should be engaged in each and every project that we take in Malawi. It needs Scotland, people living in Scotland need to have a perspective of Malawi firsthand. They can't keep on hearing it through the videos that we're taking. No, but you need to come down here and you need to understand what we're saying. You need to see how projects are actually being done, and you also need to get your own perspective and your own point of view, so that from your angle, what would you do to help us, rather than from how we're feeling, because maybe we can just be biased, or maybe you can't understand us because you don't know how we're feeling. So we think that we can just collaborate by being result driven, and you guys should come here and we can maybe collaborate and see how we can work together hand in hand. Of course, with the COVID precautions being taken. And also we need to train influential people, those in parliament, and there must be something that Scotland does that Malawi hasn't tried yet. So we'd also want to learn how Scotland is actually managing their losses and damages, and maybe we can incorporate that in our system, in our government, and have actually better results. Now we tackle the additional questions, which is what do we think can make the co-presidency be successful? One thing is we need to avoid political interference. Now we already know there's unequal power rights with the global north and the global south. So what we're trying to do is how can we avoid that? So before any agreement is made, co-presidency needs to figure out solutions on how they can avoid any political interference, so that when that solution is there, then agreements can be made, rather than agreements being made before actually solving the problem of political interference. Then that means these agreements will just go in vain. Now you need to build capacity. Those people who are doing these agreements, how will you know that they will actually do what is being said on paper? So you need to understand that people are people. Humans make mistakes. So there needs to be other agreements put on the side that will be able to monitor and evaluate what what these people who are handling issues concerning loss and damage are doing, but also they need to be result driven. They need to be community based driven. The people who are living in these areas that are most vulnerable need to know what you guys are doing. They also need to be there firsthand and listening to what you guys are doing, so that you have well representation. Now, who should pay for loss and damage? We believe that everyone should pay for loss and damage, and there is the big emitters. We have also us, we do emit nationally, so we believe that everyone should pay. Either they can pay by lending in their time, their resources, and when I say resources, it can be materials, donations, or money. But right now we need the money, because the money will help us actually build more resilience, build more adaptation measures in our community. But also, as Malawians, we can be able to set up a budget for people who are in this vulnerable areas, so that we can be able to donate to them once all their clothes have been flooded, and we can also be able to provide food for them, or maybe even have a refugee camp, so that when their communities are built back again, they can go back. And the big emitters should obviously fund and pay what they owe us. Thank you.